Now, Taiwan has emerged as a key point of friction as the US President Donald Trump and the Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping met in a very choreographed summit in Beijing. Now, China has called this to be the most important issue between the two nations. The Chinese leader warned of clashes and even conflicts between the world's two largest economies over Taiwan. Now, Xi cautioned Trump that tensions over Taiwan could jeopardize ties between the two nations. His warning is contrasted with the public praise that was offered by both men as they arrived for a grand welcome ceremony at the Great Hall of the People in the Chinese capital. Now, the White House described this meeting between Trump and Xi as good, but did not mention the specifics of any discussions between the two leaders on Taiwan. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that it will be a terrible mistake if China tries to take Taiwan by force, and added that the position of the United States on Taiwan remains unchanged. Now, reacting to Xi's warning, Taiwan claims that Beijing's attempts to disrupt the status quo pose the main threat to regional peace.
Xi Jinping stated today that Taiwan independence is the greatest risk to peace in the Taiwan Strait. The true risk to peace in the Taiwan Strait currently lies in the Chinese Communist Party's attempts to disrupt this status quo and undermine the continued existence of the Republic of China.
Taiwan is a self-governing island that China claims is actually a renegade part of its own territory. Beijing has never renounced the use of force to unify Taiwan with mainland China if needed. The U.S. relationship with Taiwan has long been viewed with hostility. While Washington recognizes the one China policy officially, it still, on the other hand, continues to sell arms to Taiwan. It also has long adopted a policy of strategic ambiguity over whether it would militarily come to Taiwan's defense. Now, arms sales have been at the core of the U.S.-Taiwan ties, and according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, 77% of major conventional arms imported by Taiwan between 1979 till 2020 were made in America. By the end of the first term in 2020, Trump had notified the Congress of over $18 billion of foreign military sales to Taiwan. Last December, the Trump administration had announced a $11 billion arms package. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we have got Dr. Srikant Kondapalli. He's a professor of Chinese studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. He's joining us live on WION. Professor, thank you very much indeed for joining us here. And let me in fact start off by asking you this. The optics of Donald Trump meeting Xi Jinping were pretty evident. The United States of America, that takes great pride in being the superpower of the world, its president is in the Great Hall of the People in China, possibly asking for Chinese help to sort out the crisis that Donald Trump started in the Strait of Hormuz. How much do you think the world has changed in the last 2 months, and what does this mean for America's prestige that it needs Chinese help to deal with a war in the Strait of Hormuz that was started by the Americans? Professor, if you can hear me, the question that I was asking you was, the fact that the American president is in the Chinese Great Hall of the People, possibly asking for Chinese help to sort out the issue in the Strait of Hormuz. How do you think this impacts America's prestige in the world? I think we seem to have lost the line with Professor Srikant Kondapalli there. We'll try and reconnect with him in just a bit. But this is an interesting dynamic, something that not a lot of people expected even 3 months ago, as the American President Donald Trump is on a charm offensive along with the top members of his cabinet and also with a delegation of the who's who of America's business leaders, including the likes of Elon Musk, Tim Cook of Apple and the NVIDIA's CEO, and also the War Secretary Pete Hegseth, who had been very, very confident that America was winning in Iran, and also the likes of Stephen Miller that you can see in the background behind Marco Rubio. It is interesting that they are in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing, possibly looking for Chinese help, because China does not care about American sanctions, and it purchases almost 80 to 90% of the sanctioned Iranian oil. And therefore, the Chinese have a lot of leverage vis-a-vis what happens with Iran's economy, and the Americans are potentially requesting the Chinese to see if they can help the Americans out in the Strait of Hormuz. Will the Chinese actually do it? That, of course, is the big question. Because what is the incentive for China to actually help out the American president at a time when he seems to be in a fair bit of bother in the Strait of Hormuz, whose control has been taken over by the Iranians ever since Donald Trump, along with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, started this war on the 28th of February. These are some striking images, but the equation between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump has, of course, changed. I'm told that we've got Professor Srikant Kondapalli back with us. Professor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry about that. Yeah.
All right. So the question that I was asking you, Professor, is this. The fact that an American president is in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing, potentially asking for Chinese help to help the Americans out of the quagmire that have got into in the Strait of Hormuz. How do you see the world having been changed in the last 3 months? And what do these images portray about America's prestige at this moment in the world?
I think it is a grand bargaining between both sides and the reiteration of the G2 by President Trump on the Truth Social some time ago, and the uncertainty over the Iranian conflict and various other conflicts that we are witnessing in recent times, Gaza, Ukraine, and others. So we are in this inflection point, and as you rightly mentioned, the United States is seeking the Chinese help, both in terms of the restoration of its economic growth rates, diversifying the economic growth rates, and also finding solutions for the Iranian conflict. We have seen that the costs for the United States have been higher, partly because there is the reports that were circulating that China had supplied some of the Peto navigational satellite imageries to the Iranians in order to fight the United States. We have also seen reports about the solid propellants for the ballistic missiles that Iran had used, these originally coming from China. So there are a lot of these, including radars like HQ-9 surface-to-air missile batteries, and so on and so forth. So there is the United States assessment just before the November midterm elections that they need to stabilize the situation and get back to the economic growth rates.
Right. Interesting. Now, the fact that, every American president in the last few decades has been focused on a policy to try and contain China. Now, if an American president needs Chinese help to sort out some of the conflicts that he has started, does it mean that the Americans will have to trade off the support that they willingly offer to Taiwan against China as a bargain for the Chinese to help them out in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, I think since the Henry Kissinger's visit in 1971, United States helped rise China by investments, technologies, access to the markets, and providing for the support through its allies in European Union. Japan, South Korea, and even Taiwan contributed to the China rise. Very ironical,
right,
as Christopher Landau, the Deputy Secretary of State, mentioned in the Raisina dialogue on March 5th this year. He said that we will not make the same mistake as we did with China in terms of opening up the market economy to the Chinese. He was mentioning about not supporting India,
Right.
but actually it suggests that the Americans have made a mistake with China. What is important in this meeting is that United States is still making the mistake of depending on China, including on the Iranian conflict.
Interesting. We'll have to see as to how this equation progresses from here. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Kondapalli, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you.